I assume that many of you out there are a little bit like me. So 16 years ago, I underwent a pretty profound life change, the birth of my eldest daughter. No other event in my life has had a comparable impact on my outlook, my sense of identity, or my understanding of responsibility. Having kids changed me because I understand that no other responsibility comes close to that one. It's my duty to protect and nurture the innocents that have been entrusted to my care. But I'm a human, and I too often fail in that responsibility, sometimes out of character flaws, but often out of ignorance. Well, today I'm thrilled to have a guest who has made it her life's mission to remove some of the ignorance that exists about food safety and other issues related to the health of our families. Zen Honeycutt, welcome.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you for that profound opening. It really is one of the most amazing experiences of one's life to have a child and to be responsible for their well-being. So thank you for saying that in such a lovely way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm reminded of that every day, the responsibility that we all bear as parents. It can be a little awesome sometimes and a little overwhelming, but and for those of you who I think everybody out there probably knows Zen. I mean, we've talked many, many times. She's an old and dear friend of our organization and one of our most trusted and allies. But for those of you who don't know, she is the founding executive director of a great group called Moms Across America. They're a nonprofit coalition of unstoppable moms. I love that, by the way. I love that
Thank you.
the way that's phrased. Their motto is empowered moms, healthy kids. And Moms Across America has grown rapidly. They have over 600 leaders around the country. They've created nearly 1,000 community events in all 50 states in the past 5 years. Been very busy. Moms Across America empowers and amplifies the voice of the mom locally and nationally to create healthy communities by raising awareness about GMOs and related pesticides in our food. And today, Zen is with us because she has an exciting and rather terrifying new project that is gaining a lot of attention nationally. And she's here to talk with us a little bit about what she's done in terms of testing school food. So Zen, can you tell us a little bit about the testing program that you initiated? What led you to test these school meals? What are you testing for, and how did you go about it?
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, actually, we've been around for 10 years. And in the first 5 years, our moms created those 1,000 events. And then after that, we've been growing online, social media, all of that. And some of the most important initiatives that we took that got the most news and attention were the testing. We initiated glyphosate testing for breast milk, tap water, and urine about 9 years ago now. And the results were really explosive. And so after that, many other groups and even government organizations actually took on glyphosate testing. Thousands of samples have been tested, very high levels. I believe it was the Canadian Food Inspection Agency that tested and found glyphosate in like 60 to 70% of the samples, the 7,800 samples that they tested. But we knew that testing for glyphosate alone is not enough, because many farmers are starting to switch now to, dicamba and all kinds of atrazine and 2,4-D, all kinds of other very harmful chemicals. They're equally as harmful. It's just that glyphosate is used so much. It's like, 80% of GMOs are engineered to withstand glyphosate. So we knew that when the farmers were starting to find out more bad news about glyphosate, like it being a carcinogen and an endocrine disruptor and causing liver and kidney disease, that they probably wouldn't just drop glyphosate, they would switch to other chemicals. So we knew we had to test these school lunches for not just glyphosate, but 220 of the most egregious pesticides that are being used out there. And that's an important point, because the California and the federal Food and Drug Administration programs don't test for the pesticides that are being used. When you look at the list of the most common pesticides that are being used, only about 3 of them, when you look at their list of what they're testing for, right? Only 3 of them are the ones that are most widely used. So they can go ahead and say, oh, we tested, 1,200 samples to see if they were positive for pesticides. 98% of them were not positive for pesticides, but they're only testing for 3 of the most commonly used. So that's a fraudulent claim, right? It's really not based on science and what's actually happening in reality. So we wanted to test for the ones that are most widely used and for veterinary drugs and hormones, because especially in livestock meat, there could be high levels of that. That's quite often used in confined animal feeding operations. Also for heavy metals, we know from the baby food testing from the Congressional Baby Food Report that was put out by Healthy Babies, Bright Futures about maybe a year and a half ago, that there's been very high levels of heavy metals reported in baby food. So we figure, well, it's probably not just baby food, it's probably school lunches, adult food, so we should test for that. And then finally, we wanted to test for nutrients, because we know that nutrients are so important in a child's development, in the way that their brain operates, in their ability to make good decisions. I mean, we can get more into, behavioral issues and lack of vitamins, how that's a direct causation more later. But that is something that we knew is very important. And because of this agrochemical, monocrop culture system that you and our viewers are all very well aware of, those nutrients we suspect would be very depleted. And so that was the reasoning for testing for so many things in these school lunches. We really wanted to get an encompassing picture of what's going on with the school lunch supply.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. You see all these headlines all the time, and they tell us a story that's only a half truth most of the time, unfortunately. So it's interesting. It's not only big corporations that are involved in greenwashing; it's also our very own government is trying to convince us that things are safe that aren't. So I really applaud you for having the foresight and the initiative to go on and look at this more deeply. So as you got the results back, I guess what most stood out to you? What was most stunning to you in the results as they started to come back from the testing that you did?
Well, I was shocked that 95.3% of the samples were positive for glyphosate, because when you look at the other food samples that were tested, like I said, in Canada, 7,800 samples, it was maybe 60 to 70% that were positive for glyphosate. And when you look at the Detox Project recent testing, the same thing, about 60 something percent of the samples in the grocery stores were positive for glyphosate. So we expected them to be positive for glyphosate, but not 95%,
Wow.
95.3%. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And and I think the ones that weren't positive, they were mostly like fruit and things like that, where it's not directly sprayed on it.
Okay.
But all 100% of the wheat products were positive for glyphosate. So that was shocking. And then 74% were positive for some other type of harmful pesticide. And there were 29 different other harmful pesticides. I'm glad it wasn't hundreds, but still 29 other harmful pesticides, and 74% of them to be positive for at least one of them. Some were positive for 7 or 8 of them. Especially the fruit. I'm sorry, Tim, but we know we want to get more fruits and vegetables into our kids. But when the fruit has the highest levels of these harmful pesticides, we've got to think again. We've got to think, hey, maybe the fruit and vegetables should be organic, right?
Yeah.
And then the other surprising results was that 100% of the samples were positive for high levels of heavy metals. And when I say high levels, it doesn't look like it when you look at the number. Some are 2 or 8 or 16, some are up to 94. Okay, that's high. But when you look at the numbers, that's 2 or 4 or 6, you may not think that's high. But when you look at what the EPA allows in water, it's like 0.0015, 0.05, 0.5, right? So when you compare those numbers, what's allowed in drinking water of these heavy metals, cadmium, boron, arsenic, and one other one, they are very low levels are allowed in water, and it should be the same thing in our food supply. So the levels were up to the highest one, 94.4 parts per billion of lead is actually 6,923 times higher than what is allowed in water.
Unbelievable.
And that's what these kids are eating every day for school lunches, sometimes 2 meals a day. And then we found 130 parts per billion of veterinary drugs and hormones, up to 100. The highest level was up to 130 parts per billion. That's a very high level. It's not 0.2, it's not 3, it's 130. So I have no idea what the ramifications of those types of veterinary drugs and hormones are, but I have to say, I know a woman who's a school counselor at a high school, and she says that some of her kids are so emotional. They're going through puberty so young, And one teenage girl, I know this is very graphic, but would stand in the shower and have breast milk coming out of her chest as like a 15 or 16-year-old. I
Ooh,
have to question if that is because of these veterinary drugs and hormones that
yeah.
are going on, because that's what these veterinary drugs and hormones do to cows, is they make them produce milk. And so it's very concerning. And then, of course, the nutrient levels were very low,
Yeah.
as low as like 50% lower than what they should be, some even far lower, but on average, at least 50% lower than what they should be for a child to be receiving their recommended daily intake of nutrients and to be able to grow and develop properly. So it's a mess. I mean, this food is disgusting
Yeah.
and it's harmful, and it should be enraging to parents, and it should put our Congress members and our USDA and FDA in action immediately to, revamp the entire food supply.
I mean, I can't tell you how appalled and sickened I am to hear that. I mean, we send our kids to make them better, and they're getting all of these exposures from their food. They're getting EMF radiation exposures. I know you've done a lot of work on that. I mean, it just makes you want, it's bad enough that kids have to go through metal detectors when they go to schools because of school shootings. But I mean, it's shocking to me. And, as a parent, I'm sickened by it. So, I mean, let me ask you, I mean, some parents might have the option to, send their own food to school. And, so there are, options for some parents, but some folks don't have that option, right? I mean, in underserved communities where money is a real issue, these might be the only meals that some of these kids are getting, and they're getting this, as you said, disgusting food. What do we do? How do we get out of this? I mean,
Yeah.
this is really appalling. And we always want to offer some sort of hope and something that we can all do and latch onto to make this world a little bit better for our offspring. So what can we do, Zen? I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
it's
first of
not.
all, we need to speak up to our congressmen and our USDA. So on the Moms Across America article, where we published all this information, at the very bottom, we have, please sign this letter to the USDA
Okay.
and to our congressmen and women. This is something that should be at the forefront of their minds, not just for health, but also and safety, but also for the future of our country. We cannot be a superpower if half our kids have a chronic illness and we're feeding them poison in the school lunches. Even the military back in 2010 said that because of the obesity and health issues that are showing up in the recruits, that the school lunches are a national security issue. So first of all, we need to really hammer them with this information and demand that they do something about this, and let them know that our votes are dependent on it, to them. So that's the first thing. But second of all, I would ask everybody who does send their children to school, how you might be able to reprioritize your budget to be able to send them to school with food. And things like a bowl of rice and beans is very inexpensive and offers far more nutrients than the nutrients that are going to be offered at the school. A little bit of salsa, a little bit of rice and beans, maybe a sprinkling of some type of organic cheese if they can afford it. But a meal like that is going to be far more nutrient dense and very, very inexpensive compared to buying prepackaged lunches or
Mhm.
god awful Lunchables or things like that, right? You want to make sure to purchase food that is going to be in bulk, organic, and as inexpensive as possible. And you can make soups. You can throw some rice in there to make it more substantial. You can get bread or even make bread. You can teach. My son started making bread at 9 years old. So, kids can make their own bread and slice that up and make very good sandwiches like you can make a loaf of bread for $1.50, maybe $2 if you're using really good organic ingredients. So, you can make food and have your children bring it, organic tortillas and some type of wrap. There's a lot of options out there. In fact, we showed that even buying organic food, like cheddar bunnies and things like that for preschool snacks is cheaper than what the school had. So on our website, we have a organic preschool snacks type of list. We didn't do it for lunches yet. That's something that I would love to do. Maybe have our volunteers help us with that. Pricing out the organic food school lunches,
Mhm.
and showing that you can do it at a reasonable expense. So we really would encourage people to bring food with them as much as they possibly can.
And I know your group of unstoppable moms out there get very involved in their local communities. So are there opportunities out there for you to get involved with your local school board? I mean, I don't know how all of this is decided, like who decides what these lunches are and where they're sourced. Are there those kind of opportunities for those advocates who want to get involved at that level?
Absolutely, but it tends to be the school districts that have more money that can afford that. Like there's this great program it was originally called Teens Turning Green. And it was a group of teenagers. It's Judy Schill's daughter out in California that actually got their school to source organic food locally from local farms. And that's because they had a cafeteria and a kitchen in the school. A lot of schools don't have a kitchen where they're actually preparing food in the school and, serving it hot and all that. A lot of schools just have sort of like a buffet where they just put the pre-made meals, slide it onto a counter and that's it. They're not cooking anything there. So it really depends on the financial status and location of the school. But there are schools, there's another one in Encinitas. I believe her name is Mimi Love, got this whole, school district to grow food. And that's another thing, our students and our parents can really support having a school garden put in, which would at least give them organically grown fresh fruit and vegetables. And they would give them the opportunity to learn how to grow that food. I think that we should have school gardens in every single school, right? And
Absolutely.
in fact, I just talked to a man last night on our Moms Connect calls. We have Monday night Moms Connect calls, and you can sign up for those through our newsletter. And this one man, Gary, was saying that in Ohio, when he was growing up, starting in first grade all the way through sixth grade, and he's probably in his late 50s now, they had a school garden plot that every year that class would tend a school garden plot, and they would bring home fruits and vegetables to their parents. And, that's the kind of thing that our public schools should be supporting. They should be supporting our children learning how to grow food and eating healthy food. So if you are outraged by these results, as I am, I would ask you to direct that anger into action and to be the one to either instigate a school garden or to have those meetings with your PTA and your school principal and your food director and say, hey, we've got to at least get the wheat that's in these products switch to organic. We've got to at least get the meat to be switched to grass-fed and organic. There's certain things that we can start with right now today, or the fruits and vegetables. Can we get the fruits that are, the apples and the oranges that are served to the kids from a local organic farm? One step at a time, one action at a time will make a difference, because we do see a definite difference within a week or two of having people eat organic food. Multiple studies from the UK and the US and Friends of the Earth and many different places have shown that pesticide levels can be lowered by 70 to 100% within 1 or 2 weeks. Wow. So by switching to organic food. So there is hope. It can be done. It just needs a whole bunch of mothers and others, fathers and students and people like that to take action. And I have to say that we had a lot of fathers that reached out that said they wanted to help get the school lunch samples, and they asked their children. And we really want to give our hats off to all the children who went and bought a school lunch, because if it wasn't for them, this would not have happened. So thank you very much to all the students out there who got the school lunches and brought them home.
Well, I really appreciate your words of advice, and I would encourage everybody that's watching this. There'll be some links below the video, a link to the study, and then we'll link to your main website, and people can navigate around your website and find some of the resources in trying to find what strategy is going to work for them locally, whether it be changing what's in their school lunches that they send with their kids, or trying to get involved at the community level and push for things like school gardens, which I think is fantastic. I love that idea. And I think it'd be wonderful to see those all over the country. So I again commend you and thank you for the work that you and the unstoppable moms across America do. So thank you again.
And dads and kids. Yeah. Thank you, Tim. It's really great being with you and Alliance for Natural Health. I appreciate it so much.
Always good to talk to you, Zen. Thank you.
Take care.